And welcome back to another Between the Pages book chat. And today our guest is fantasy author Jan Foster, and we're here to talk about her historical fantasy romance, Disrupting Destiny, which is book one of the Naturae series. And I'm going to
Yep.
turn it over to her and let her introduce herself. So take it away.
Hi, I'm Jan. I'm talking to you from rainy Manchester. What a surprise! It's raining in Manchester yet again. It's getting quite annoying now, I have to admit. Um, and I write historical fantasy. And as you very kindly pointed out, I have book one of my series is called Disrupting Destiny. There's actually three books currently out in the series. There's a prequel called Risking Destiny, which is set in Viking times. And the main series begins with Disrupting Destiny, and the bulk of the series is set in the Tudor Age. So we've got Disrupting Destiny, which is set 1556. No, what am I talking about? 1536 even. Been a long day. And Anarchic Destiny, which is set in 1553. That's what I was trying to say for. So 1536 and 1553. Those are the two currently published in the main series of the Naturae series.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, don't worry about messing that up. I mean, I can't remember half of my errors either. So
Well, I haven't written anything like as many as you, but I'm sure when I get to that point, then I'll be like, oh, which book was
yeah, it's
which?
like I got them written down. I got the dates written down in the notes, so I remember. So yeah,
I have a massive timeline up on
yeah,
my wall of what actually happened and when the book was, so it kind of marries.
yeah. It's like the fictional timeline's over here and the
Yeah.
historical one's over here.
Oh, I cannot live without timelines. They're a godsend. I'm doing another prequel at present, which is set in 1415 in the Agincourt battle, and it's a miracle. There's so much documentation. It's wonderful. I can precisely put the times and days exactly when everything happened, and I love that. I love being that detailed.
Yeah, I liked that when I was doing my Chronicles of the Undead book, and I actually found an online historical calendar
Oh,
because I did the book as diary entries, so I had to
mm,
be precise on
yeah,
what day, and because they couldn't do certain things on, like, say, Sunday or whatever like that. So,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Have that
so
totally, but you have to be that detailed because somebody will pick you up on it if you don't. You just know that they will, and I think it's appreciated by some people. I had
yeah.
a review recently on my series. Actually, it was a lovely lady, and she read all of the books and she reviewed them all independently. And she said the best thing is actually how I can go back and I know that what she says is exactly what happened. And she, of course, had a degree in Tudor literature. So I was like, yes, I feel like I have won. I have found my ideal reader. She gets it.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the book. What's it about?
The first book I wrote as a whole novel. I actually wrote a children's book as well, but completely unrelated. Um, and I have to be honest with you, I went in there determined not to do anything with tropes. So what we've ended up with is a only slightly tropey, but it's basically a wild adventure thriller, which was what I wanted to write in terms of the style of it. I wanted to be that kind of pacey thriller thing, but quite character led. So it builds up and you get to know the characters first of all, and then it all just goes horribly wrong and everything. They get separated. It's a little bit unusual because it is a fantasy book that is set on an epic scale, so to speak, but the couple that we follow are an established couple. So they are dealing with mature relationship issues through the course of the series. They're not, this isn't a romance where they, kind of get together. There are romantic elements in it, certainly, but there are not, it's not a happy ever after kind of that sort of thing. They spend the majority of the book apart, my main couple, and there is a happy ending, of course. And then the next book, Anarchic Destiny, they similarly suffer troubles, but it is more of an adventure than it is a quest type book, if that makes any sense. There's not a chosen one and prophecies or anything like that. It's got a lot of elements in it of a lot of different genres by design, mostly.
It sounds
Although
cool,
when
and
it comes to marketing it, it's not such an easy thing. It turns out trope is good.
Yeah,
Who
well,
knew?
I don't know. You have some interesting elements that I think would appeal because I hear a lot of people who say they want a more mature romance, so you could always push that angle for it.
Yeah, well, I found that a lot of when I was doing sort of research into this, a lot of historical fantasy was written for the YA market and
Mm,
the new adult market. And I'll be honest with you, I'm, in my late 40s, and I cannot remember what it was like to have that kind of first flush of romance. I've been happily married for many, many years. I have children. It's just not, it's sort of it's not interesting to me. Everybody needs romance in their life, I think, but um, I'm more interested in people dealing with getting on with life than it being the be all and end all of life, if that makes any sense.
yeah.
So yeah, romance is important, but I don't think it's. I don't think my stories. Except I say that, and I am writing a prequel, which is a proper romance, just because I thought I'm going to have to do this because people are asking, how did they get together? And you're like, well, I know. I suppose I should tell you, shouldn't I? Really, if you really want to know. So yeah, that's
Okay,
why.
so tell us a little bit about the characters. What are they like?
Most of in fact, all of the books are written in dual point of view. So you see both the female perspective, which is Aoife, and she starts off disrupting destiny with a very big secret that she hasn't told her husband, partner, who the names is kind of important, but also not. But she hasn't told Joshua who she really is, and they are as we meet them at the beginning of Disrupting Destiny. They've been together for a century. They spend their life basically on the run, but they're always trying to make a home together. But they obviously, because they don't age as normal people do, their time in any one town is always limited by the fact that they don't seem to get any older. Uh, and that's if they're not kind of pushed out of town as well for being a bit weird and a bit different and a bit too beautiful, if you like, and having some peculiar habits. So quite often they have to leave very quickly and they have to start all over again. So Disrupting Destiny starts with them starting all over again, having been hounded out of their town. So you kind of get embedded in the town that they're in, but unfortunately they've randomly chosen the wrong town. And somebody in that town knows Aoife's secret. And what happens is the result of that secret getting out. I'm not going to tell it all of you, but yeah, essentially, she gets kidnapped because of her secret, and her poor husband Joshua is left to pick up the pieces and try and find her again. So that's what the adventure is, and he has a very down to earth, very much centered in Tudor times. He's got to traverse the country from where he is in the northeast of England. He's got to traverse the country all the way through Scotland, etc., through various different modes of transport, encountering various different people and different situations that educate him with a real rude awakening as to what he really is. And in the meantime, Aoife is facing her own battles, having been kidnapped and dragged back to her fantasy island of Naturae.
Okay, so what inspired you to write the book?
Sorry, what
What
inspired me to?
to write it?
Well, I'm a curious person, and around about the time when I was thinking of writing this, firstly, I'm obsessed with the Tudors. I absolutely love that century. I think it's the most. It's a bit like our century, actually. It's a time with massive change, massive upheaval, and I wanted to write a book which was going to showcase that, but also to try and make the changes that happened then have some relevance now. So one of the things that was going on at the time of writing it was in England we had Brexit happening, which for those of you that don't know what that is, that's when England decided it was going to come out of the European marketplace. It was a very, very interesting time for us as a nation. Uh, Ended up with literally 50-50 the country thinking it was a good thing and 50% thinking that this was the worst thing that was ever going to happen to us. And yet we have gone ahead with it. So that very, very much reminded me, and the way that households and people and families, husbands, wives, communities were, it was just what we talked about or what we didn't talk about, because it was too upsetting to have the opposite view from somebody that you thought you knew, and you were perhaps surprised that they didn't think the same as you, and therefore you couldn't really talk about it without somebody getting upset. So in a very British way, there was a lot of not talking, and it struck me that that was very, very similar to what happened in 1535, 1536, when Henry VIII broke from the Church of Rome. And those of you who are history buffs may know that he did it basically because he wanted to marry Anne Boleyn, because she was apparently going to provide him with an heir. But it was really, that wrenching of what we believed in as a nation, we thought we were doing, and then suddenly the rugs, just kind of swept out from under your feet. It's all changed, and all change on a massive scale over the next few years. And it turns out to be a massive scale for us in the UK as well, in the changes that we've had to accommodate. So that was kind of the inspiration for it, in the sense of I understood we were living through that kind of level of change. I understood how people might have felt in 1536 with that. And I wanted to kind of bring that out and discuss it, I suppose, and discuss various other themes through the course of the book, like belief and what it is to believe, what it is to have a religion or not have a religion, as the case may be, what it is to acknowledge who you are as a person, and truly deeply accept that. So yeah, there was a lot of things that I wanted to kind of talk about in a book, and fantasy gave me the opportunity to have that discussion and that debate, because there's a kind of removal there. When you have fantasy, you can break the rules, as long as you've got your own rules that everybody abides by within the book setting. You can break the rules, and you can challenge those assumptions, and what you think is true might not be true.
Indeed. So, what was the hardest scene or type of scene for you to write in the book?
In all honesty, actually, it was the dialogue. Not between my two main characters, because I deliberately made them talk in a fairly modern way, shall we say. But some of the other characters, to try and make sure that I got across the very difference in time and how we have changed in the way that we speak, they have more of a tendency to speak in a slightly different sentence structure. And I ended up writing it quite a lot in that, and then editing it and thinking, no, because people just won't understand it. But there are bits in the book where I have paraphrased, heavily drawn from actual manuscripts and actual texts of the time. So, for example, in Anarchic Destiny, I was able to find, there's a scene where one of the main characters, Henry Fitzroy, goes to address a rebellion. And in this rebellion, there is actually, you can find the actual text of the speech that one of the rebels gave to the troops, which actually had an interesting effect on the troops, because all the people, the two armies were meeting to clash, and the leader of the rebels gave this pretty inspiring speech, and then the captain of the army turned around and said, yeah, I'm with him, actually. He's talking sense. I'm going to go with him. So he actually basically went, well, you can do what you like. I know you came down here to defend the Queen, but actually he's talking a lot of sense there. So if you want, I'm going over. Do you want to come too? So I found the actual dialogue that they and then when I ran it through beta readers, I did have to change it a little bit and just kind of tweak it so that it was readable for an English person or an English speaker. And then I ran it through quite a lot of beta readers and sort of said, okay, is this too much? And they went, yeah, it's too much. You really have to cut that back a bit because I just can't understand it at all. So I feel a bit aggrieved that I've had to do that because I was so excited to actually have that genuine text in there. But that I found quite hard to do because you're trying to get across the sense of the scene and the drama of it, and it's based in, you know, reality and based in what actually happened, and you have to dumb it down, and that kind of, I find that quite difficult to do.
Yeah, that is the trick, getting the dialogue right.
Yeah, yeah.
But the original text makes good supplements. I'm just saying, in the back of the book.
Well, I do acknowledge it, and where I obviously, I'm not wishing to sound academic about it, but I do put historical notes in the back that just
Yeah.
says, I found this piece of text. You can find it here if you want to read it. This is where it was from. Um, you know, things like Lady Jane Grey's actual speech before she was executed. It's amazing what you can find when you look for it. So yeah, I do acknowledge sources at the back.
So, what was your favorite scene or type of scene that you wrote in the book?
Um, I love to read action scenes. I'm not so great at writing them, and I have some fantastic other authors that work with me to make sure that when I'm describing emotion of a fight scene or something, it's actually realistic. So I feel very lucky that I've got that kind of support to draw in, and I'll send them like the scene and say, does this make sense? And does it, you know, if he falls on the floor, would he actually fall on the floor? So I feel very fortunate that I have that backup to help me write those action sequences, because I love reading them and I love reading those action sequences in their work, but I find them quite tricky to write myself. Um, yeah.
Okay, so
How
what are
about
your
you? Do you write action sequences in your books?
I do write action sequences in my book. I write a lot of darker fantasy and horror, so
Mm.
there's a lot of murdering and killing and things.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, and I actually wrote a battle scene from first person point of view.
Ooh, that's tricky.
Yeah, very tricky. It's like
Very
I hadn't
tricky.
planned. I started the original series in first person, and I hadn't really thought about doing the battle scene. And then I get to it, and I'm going, "This is going to be troublesome."
Yeah, yeah. It's funny actually. I write this main series is in third person omniscient, um, but yeah, there's definitely kind of more points of view. I don't head hop, etc. But I've recently been co-writing a book, a historical thriller, and we decided, my co-author and I, to write that in first person present tense. It makes sense, honestly, when you read it, it totally makes sense. um because but it was really bad because I was still just habitually writing
Yeah,
past tense, and he she did this and then the name, and it's totally different. It's so immersive, which was very important to have that in this particular novel, I might say. So I totally feel your pain. Battle scene
yeah.
first person point
I
of view,
I
oh
have
my
a, I
word.
have a work in progress. It's first person present tense, and it's like the first person part is fine. It's the present tense part is
Yeah.
like, gotta watch yourself from slipping into past and
Yes,
having.
yes.
Yeah,
My co-author is very good at just underlining, just
yeah. I mean,
highlight it a little bit there. Oh, that's past tense.
yeah. Lucky for me, I write a lot of my flash fiction in present tense, so it's not as
Yeah, I
difficult.
do. I do. It's funny. I've just had one published actually in an anthology, which I did in first person present tense, more to try and kind of drum it into my brain that that is how you write it, because you're just
Yeah,
so not used to it. When you've written three books in third person in the past, it's like
yeah. I
so.
find flash fiction actually works a lot better when you use first person
I
present
think it does
tense.
too. Yeah, there's the immediacy to it, which I think you need for flash fiction.
Mm.
Um, it's interesting actually in this anthology that's just released. It's a romance anthology called A Season for Romance. Yes, I'm practicing my romance. Can you tell? And it, I would say that mine stood out because it was first person present. A lot of them were actually past tense, which I thought was quite interesting. Because I'm with you. I would have gone first person present for a flash because of the immediacy. Um, I'm not. I'm glad I'm not alone.
No, okay. So tell us a little bit about some of the secondary characters. Or do they like to steal the scenes from the main characters?
Well, I do have a favourite. I have to confess, I do have a favourite, and I think he might actually have to get his own spin-off at some point soon. Essentially, in my world, living amongst humans are the Fae, which are the main characters. I should just find that way. Um, so my Fae have wings. They're not like the dark and the light Fae or anything like that. I don't. I've never even read most of those books, so I don't understand the nuances of that particular genre and trope. So I just wanted to do people with wings because I thought, crikey, that'd be really tricky, wouldn't it, to live with wings, especially in the Tudor age. I might be mean, and yeah, I'll give my magical beings wings and they're fae. But they're very, very ancient and they're immortal. And their direct competitor, if you like, are vampires who are quite closely allied with the Catholic Church, we say, because the Catholic Church let blood, just in case you didn't know that. So that's the vampire side of it. And those are the two supernatural classes, if you like, hiding amongst humans. But there are more hybrid humans, and they are witches and demons. So my witches obviously have magical witchy powers, and they're all completely unique. And my demons are more like superhumans. So they have extraordinary abilities. So I'd like you to imagine people who are perhaps genius level or on the spectrum, equally genius. So they've all got their quirks. Every demon is very, very unique, but they all have something extraordinary about them that means that they can make those mental leaps, which pushes forward, human civilization's advances, for example. So because they are essentially human, they don't really acknowledge and understand that they are different. They just behave differently and they have different mental abilities. So there's that kind of layer there of demons. And one of my favorite characters is a demon called Thomas Fairfax, and he's just one of those people that chaos just follows in his wake. No matter what he tries to do, he has the best of intentions. He really does. They might not be the most moral of intentions, but he does have the best of intentions. But if it can go wrong, it will go wrong, and that is his kind of curse, if you like. It's fantastic. He's a spy. Um, One of those sort of people that can just see the mathematics in something and understand it. So he's extraordinary in that regard. He's a bit of a pirate, bit of a double crosser. You can't necessarily trust him. Definitely bisexual, and yeah, he's just a really fun character to write. He's just always, I don't know, fun things happen around him. He's the unexpected. He was always meant to be the agent of chaos, and he really is. When I'm writing, I sort of think, well, Fairfax is going to come in and do this, and that's going to happen. And then I write it, and he just does something completely unexpected that I wasn't really planning for him to do. And so I then have to resolve that, which is always kind of fun, really, isn't it?
Yeah, he sounds fun. A demon, the spy, bisexual pirate guy.
Great.
That sounds great.
Yeah. Think Walter Raleigh, and you're kind of on the right lines.
Okay, so what's coming up for you?
Well, I need to do the final draft, or the second to final draft, I'm assuming it will be actually, of my co-authored book, a historical thriller. And I'm hoping that will be out in autumn, which would be lovely. And then I'm in the middle of present in with writing a prequel, which is this pure romance, definitely to trope, and that will be available for free. People, because I'm generous like that, and I like to introduce my characters to people so that they fall in love with them and want to buy the rest of the books. That's the plan.
Okay, cool. So I think I'll wrap it up here, and I'd like to thank you for being my guest. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
It's been lovely to chat to you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, please join us next weekend when we have another guest with us. And that's all for now, folks. So bye.
Bye.